Hi class, and for this week's video we're going to be covering something a little bit different than usual. We're going to actually be covering color theory. And for those of you that don't know what color theory is, or just kind of introductory basics, it's basically how you can mix different colors and how to use the colors that you do know how to mix or don't necessarily know how to mix, but like figure out how to mix looking based on the rules and stuff. It's how to pair those all together to make color schemes and stuff. A lot of color theory goes into your everyday life, such as like if you like a sports team, they use color theory to pick the colors for that. A lot of sports teams have high contrast colors, which are colors that really stand out and pop. So let me do this. So what we have here is called a color wheel, and it's the easiest way to explain color theory is to look at the color wheel. So the color wheel, well, you should all know your primary colors, and the primary colors are all the colors that you mix to make any other color. And your primary colors are yellow, blue, and red. And if you look on the color wheel, they're all evenly spaced throughout the wheel. And to mix any of these other colors, you're going to mix at least two of these primaries together. And so your primaries, like I said, are yellow, blue, and red. And to mix any other color, like let's say you want to mix green, you would mix yellow and blue, and you would get green right here. Or let's say you wanted to mix purple, or what would be called violet, you would mix blue and red. And then let's say you want an orange, you mix red and yellow. So these colors, as you can see, are all evenly dispersed around the color wheel. And these colors that you can mix by mixing primaries are called secondary colors. And secondary colors are, as they sound, colors that are mixed by mixing your primaries, or basically like your first colors. And primary colors and secondary colors are generally what you see a lot of, and they're the colors, and then you have the in-between colors between everything. So let's say you wanted to get any of these, like maybe you wanted to get this color here, or this one, or any of these ones that aren't a primary or a secondary, you would mix a primary and then a secondary together to get what are called the tertiary. So tertiary would be this yellow green, blue violet, red orange, and then yellow orange. And those are all the colors that you get on the color wheel. And so when you have your primary, secondary, and tertiary colors, that's why there's all the different colors on the wheel. So mixing them all together, like obviously if you mix them all together you're gonna get like a dirty brown, but like mixing your primaries and secondaries and basically a combination between yellow and blue is what's needed for any of these in between ones. That's how you classify all the different colors on the color wheel. I can actually quick write out the names. So yellow, orange, red orange, red violet, blue violet, blue, blue, green, green, and then yellow, green. And if you notice, for tertiary colors, it's when they're named, it's named first your primary color that you use to mix, and then the secondary color that you've used to mix. So when you are, now that you know the different names and the color wheel, you're probably wondering, well, how do I use the color wheel? And it can seem like a daunting task to, when you first look at this, to know, how am I going to pick colors? Well, there's a couple different, I guess, tips and tricks that you can use to help when you're not sure what colors to use. So if you want something with a lot of contrast, you can do what is called color complements. So if you look, since this is a wheel, any color that's across it, so let's say you want something that really pops and stands out from each other, you could pick blue, green, and red, orange. And since those are across from each other on the color wheel, they would be the highest contrast colors. With those colors, or let's say you really want yellow, but you want something that really stands out well with yellow, you could go to violet, and these are the ones that have like the highest visibility and easy to see in contrast to each other. And you'll know that based on their position on the color wheel. So, like I said, complementary colors, and not only that, but if you want, maybe you don't necessarily want the complementary colors, you can pick, actually, maybe you really like yellow, but you don't necessarily want violet, but you want more than one color. You can make what's called a triad scheme. And you basically use a triangle, and they're both similar in value to the purple, but they're not the highest contrast, but they're still gonna offer you very nice colors. You can also do what's called analogous colors, which are colors that are on the same side of the wheel or close in proximity. So maybe you really want them to all blend well together and look very nice, but you don't want to like a high amount of contrast. You could do basically like yellow, green, yellow. You could pick like 3, maybe 4 colors, and so you could pick yellow, yellow, orange, yellow, green, green, and they would all work well together, and they wouldn't have like a high amount of contrast, but they would all be like aesthetically pleasing. And aesthetics is just basically that it looks nice to the eye, that it doesn't make you go, ooh, I don't really like looking at that. It's kind of more of like an emotional response, if anything. And then you can also pick, like I said, based on triads, there's another way to pick colors, and you can do your triangles in any kind of way. So basically you pick the one color you want, and then let's say you want these, and basically it works by just making the triangle and then drawing the however you want. So it can be as big or as evenly spaced or as small as you want. So I can make a triangle that's like this if I really wanted to, in which where the triangle's points end is the colors that you're going to use. So you could use yellow, green, and orange. Or maybe you want something that's got a lot of contrast, but you only want 3 colors. You can always pick for evenly spacing. So like the primary colors are highest contrast against each other in a triad. Obviously their color complements are higher, but if you were to use more than one, so the triads, like I said. So obviously you could transform and rotate that triangle all around if you wish, and that would still work the same. And then you can do what's called a tetrad, which is picking 4 colors. And if you pick 4 colors, you can do it in a rectangle or a square, so you can draw it down, and it's pretty easy to see which ones that you're going to be using. And so you can pick yellow green, yellow orange, blue violet, red violet, and those would be like a good contrasting color scheme. It's important to know a little bit about color theory, just to think about it. A lot of times we can pick and kind of like figure out colors that we like or look nice and stuff, but just knowing a little bit can help us make more informed decisions on colors. And you can also do what's square, which would be like evening spacing. I guess yes, you'd be like green, orange, blue, violet, and red violet, and that would be like an even square. And just having like one that you can draw on and mess up and make little notes on. And obviously you don't have to have these at like their brightest. You can mix in like white, or you can mix in black, or you can mix in gray, and you can kind of change the tone or tint and shade of each color. So like maybe you don't want like a super bright color, because like those can kind of clash, but just like picking in this scheme of like mixing, yeah, I like that color, and then like making it lighter, making it darker, can really help you when you're picking colors. I know this is a little bit different of a video than what we usually have, but I guess my challenge for you guys, and what is the next part that we'll be moving on to, after a quick recap of everything again, just because I know it's a lot to take in, is I'm going to show you and encourage you to do something with a color palette that you've picked from the color wheel itself. And so I think I'm going to do like a triad, and I think I want something with a lot of contrast. So I think I'll do yellow, blue, red, and orange. Or not orange. Yellow, blue, and red. Sorry, I was looking at the color orange. And so I think I'm going to pick those colors. But like I said, you can do triads, which is just with a triangle, or you can draw on a square or a circle or a rectangle. And I mean, maybe you want more than one color. Maybe you want 6 colors. I mean, you can easily draw in any kind of shape you want. These are just kind of like tried and true, like general ones, to help you kind of get an idea or in a direction, if you know exactly which one, if you have like one in mind that you really want to use and you aren't sure on the other ones. Or let's say you want like some good contrast colors, so you could also go and you pick maybe like yellow and yellow orange, and then blue and blue violet. Since they are opposite of each other on the color wheel, they would contrast really well. So like I said, I'm going to add another layer. And then, well, because we have all those colors which you can read, and I'm actually going to draw, I guess, I like drawing food, so I'm going to draw a donut, some icing, and show you kind of how you can use a color palette. Like I said, I picked the primary colors. Maybe I want some cute little sprinkles here and there. And you can draw anything you want, and I honestly encourage you to make multiple drawings using different color schemes. It'll really help kind of solidify it if you think about it while you're doing it. And so now I think I'm gonna mix, let's see, that's blue, it's pretty blue, and I think I'm gonna have like a blue like this. I'm just going to fill in the bottom of this. And obviously if you wanted to shade stuff, picking, and you wanted a little higher contrast on your shading than just mixing like a slightly darker, you can mix a color that's nearby it and then darken it slightly. I know I do that a lot in my stuff just to give those shadows a little higher contrast, and I can show you what I mean by that after I've put in some of the colors here. And don't be afraid, like even if you don't like a specific color, that's totally fine. But I know for myself, just trying stuff that's out of my comfort zone, or maybe solely picking colors that I'm not used to myself, can be kind of a daunting challenge. So having a color wheel and kind of like figuring out other colors that could go with them and challenging myself that way can be really helpful. So let's say, since I have this blue, I could shift it, since we're doing like a red, I could shift it more towards the purple side and go a little bit darker probably. And so you could really shade it and see it really helps pop than necessarily be with like a darker blue. But that's not what we're actually, I should finish coloring the reds. I think I want a lighter icing for these hearts. Which it is still a shade of red, but since there's would be white mixed into this, if you were actually mixing it in real life, it turns into more of like a pinkish hue, because pink is really just red mixed with white. And then finally for yellow, which I think I want a fairly bright yellow, since these are all kind of dull. You can see how they're all kind of working together and adding a lot of contrast to each other. And I think I'm going to use this just to save us a little bit of time. It's not perfect, obviously, but kind of gives you more of an idea of like what you can do with the color schemes. And that's it for this week's video. Like I said, just challenge yourselves to try making something a little bit different, maybe in a color that you're not used to, or you know, just thinking more consciously about some of the colors that you pick and the art that you make can really help. Or just even in looking at the world around you, I challenge you to find something and be like, you know, does the colors really match on that? And if so, you know, like what kind of a color scheme does it have? And maybe just trying to label some of them. And hope you all stay safe, and I'll see you all for next week's video.